We're going to open with some femur circles. So with that in mind, you could have something behind your head if that were helpful, particularly for the rib cage to soften. As you know, just come and take a moment, and then just as you're finding the position on the floor, you're going to fold at the front of the hip and draw one knee into your chest. Just noticing how that's feeling initially. The shin and the foot are relaxed. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side, so drawing in deep. I've done that with thumbs just in the hip creases there, just to keep a little bit of length. It's almost like I'm moving my thigh bones away to give them some room to fold in. And then hands are going to rest either on the tops of the legs or the backs of the legs. You could also do this with some small soft balls underneath the back of the knees if that were altogether more comfortable. We're then going to look at this drawing in of the thigh bones a little closer to the body. Feel free to start with an away movement if you really feel that you're initially quite restricted, but from your away movement you will come back in. So in and out, let's say, with the thigh bones. And we are using the arms and hands to guide the legs in and out. So essentially you could consider it being an arm movement as opposed to a leg one. Really, that can be helpful when we're looking for a sense of heavy thigh bones. Depending on the angle at which they're meeting the pelvis, the head of the thigh bone is changing, moving forwards and backwards. And so then you have that rolling effect within the socket of the hip. Notice how it was initially, how we've done several now, how it might feel. And maybe you could start to draw in a little tighter, depending on how that felt. In order to do so, you might want to add in a breath pattern, and what can be helpful is a deflation through the lungs and therefore a softening in the ribs as the thigh bones are being drawn closer to the chest. Just some pointers to watch out for. We're not looking really for a big movement away. It's more a continuation of creating this length via the load of the bones of the legs from really the low back ribs all the way up the back of the body. So then that's going to be that the priority for us as an action is the in. If you need to have the feet and the legs wider, you might even adopt a different position where perhaps the knees are wider than the feet themselves. They're not in a parallel position, whatever feels comfortable here. Whilst there won't be an extended lower back curve, as the legs move away, you might feel that you're rolling the sacrum away from the rib cage. We are going to start with some circles, and what you're going to do is one circle of one thigh bone, drawing it in towards you still with its lever action first, and then you're going to circle the other thigh bone. So just noticing, do you need to start with the legs further away now, so that you have somewhere to go? The action of the knee moving out to the side doesn't need to be huge. It really depends on how it feels in terms of being comfortable. But also notice if when you're guiding your knee out to the side, the pelvis is rocking over, then that's going a little too far. So see whether you can stay quite contained in the pelvis. That's often the way in which you can read as to whether the movement itself is as too big really for you to keep those connections. We're going to reverse the circle. So the leg moves away, outwards, and back to its starting position. Again, does that mean then for you that it would make sense for the legs to start a little bit closer in? Just figuring this out, noticing what the pattern of movement is for you. So as soon as the leg moves away, does the pelvis twist? Are you already rocking out to one side? Are you able to contain that and really look at making a smaller shape of the circle if you need to? So paying attention, as always, just as we're setting up. I'm going to do one more here on this side, and that matches me up in terms of being balanced, and then bring your feet separately down. I used a head cushion for that, so I'm going to take that away now, because our next movement is going to take us into bridging. So with the bridging, toes apart, heels into line, that should bring you into a narrow parallel, a parallel position where you could imagine that the feet are in line with the hip sockets. Now, our hips are much more central than we think they are. We often refer to the outer part of the leg as the hip, but actually the socket of the hip is somewhere much closer in towards the center of the torso. So could you then use that as a guide for your foot position? We're also looking at being in parallel. So you'll take a breath in. As you breathe out, soften through the upper body and stand into the feet. Hover, tilt as you do. Peel the middle spine away from the floor, but maintaining shoulder blades. So you're only going to get up as high as that shoulder blade sensation continues. As you breathe out, soften between the blades. The ribs are falling back down again. Sit bones widen as you land. We go again. Down with the feet, hovering, tilting. And then exhaling to return. Put a little bit of side to side movement into the downward action of the bridge, which means that we stand, hover, tilt and peel. And from the top here, you're going to start to move the pelvis side to side. You'll take 2, maybe 4 of those sideways actions, and then take a breath, soften, as if you begin to lower. Take again 2 to 4. I'm giving you the option to stay with the 4 if the backs of the legs and the back of the body are happy to support. Side to drop. If you'd prefer to move quicker, then perhaps 4 of these translations of the pelvis side to side might work a little better for you. And we did a motion similar to this in last week's video, whereby the pelvis was resting on the towel and we were rubbing the back of the sacrum against that to generate some heat. I likened it to how it might feel to have the pelvis resting on a skateboard and have that sliding side to side. That action, that idea, that imagery just might help if you're feeling like you're unsure. I'm going to make this second and last set 2 of each as opposed to 4. And you're looking to get a minimum of 5 opportunities to slide the pelvis right and left. So here's the first opportunity. Again, imagining that the pelvis is resting on a skateboard. Lower down by sighing. Just about skimming the mat for this last set. And then I'm actually going to lift before I lower, and then just double check that I did in fact finish and find more of a centered position for my pelvis. I'm going to reach for the head cushion once more because we're going to head into some arm arcs, and we're starting with the shoulder drop movement. So taking the arms up towards the ceiling, looking for a vertical position there. The blades are going to begin to move away from the mat. Turn your palms to face your legs. And then as the blades come down, you'll find that there's an unraveling of that. And the palms end up facing towards each other once more. So the shoulder blades come off, fingertips reaching up. And then the shoulder blades are heading back down, sort of visualizing, sensing that spread of the blades from the center, so from your spine outwards to the sides of your back as the blades reconnect with the mat. So we're going to use this to start to move into a 100 prep movement. So as your blades are moving away from the mat, you're going to be taking a breath out. Notice how the back ribs push back as you do so, and that helps you curl up. You'll then inhale, unravel, and lay yourself back down again. If you wanted to come all the way back down to a firm surface, as opposed to your little cushion or towel, you could take that away. It might make the transaction between the ribs and the shoulder blades feel a little bigger without anything behind your head. Let's see how that feels. But each time we curl up, we're going to go through the process of the reaching element of the shoulder drop. This is going to be our last one. Just to take us up and find that. And then from here, we're going to head to 100. Now, we're looking at a minimum of 50, depending on how that feels for you. You have the same setup in terms of your shoulder position. I'm going to pause there, lay down and keep my head cushion for open and close. And we're back to really relating to the blades and noticing as we open and close, yes, we have expansion across the collarbones, expansion across the chest, and that idea that the collarbones feed into the arms. So all together, space, a stretch, if you like, an opening of the front of you. But how would it feel just to really pick up on what the shoulder blades do as that action happens? So using the floor. This is going to inform us. And other than any props that we might use during these sessions, the mat is all we have. So really using the mat, the hard surface of the ground that we're resting on. Get that understanding now that as the arms open, the blades seemingly roll. They rock outwards. You might feel that the outer borders are connecting with the floor over the inner borders when the arms are open. And then, of course, the reverse is happening. You feel more the connection of the inner borders particularly as you're just about at the end of the movement. You're certainly allowing the blades to move here. And with that knowledge, with that information, we are heading into our book openings. So really using the surface and then moving as if we can recall those sensations with the rotation. So setting up here, taking a breath in. As you breathe up, out, heavy with the head in the cushions. Collarbone is the extension and the arm as one, but then just noticing, does the blade continue round? Inhale when you're open, and then exhale to bring you back. So ordinarily we would stay focused on the front of the body for this one. Of course, we would continue to monitor the legs being heavy and we're leaving those behind, but just as an extra, just as a refreshing change, does for you, considering the collarbone, change your pattern of movement at all? Take yourself over to your second side. Heavy head. And adding in that extra consideration of your shoulder blade here. And if you're unsure, it is the shoulder blade of the moving arm, so this top side. The last one. Coming into chest lift. So finding ourselves back on our back once more, checking in, interlacing the hands, taking those behind the head, and really just getting a feel for the back of your body against the floor, of knowing that you're comfortable, you've had your fidget, you have space. As you breathe out, recalling the sensation of sending the low blades and the ribs into the mat, onto the towel over the mat last week. Coming into chest lift. We're going to move into the extended version, whereby you reach and hold, widen through the elbows. So certainly using the arms to help generate some extra height. This last one, as you curl up, you're going to reach and hold and bring yourself up a little higher. As you lay down, The feet are going to draw towards you and lift up into the air. And then the legs will go forwards, the back ribs will push back. You're rolling through the spine to bring you up into your seated position. Send the mat away, tilting the pelvis. The feet will draw towards you when you need them to bring you onto your back. If it's helpful for you to place a mini ball between the knees here, then do so. If it helps to create that unity. And then as we come down next, we're going to stay down. So bring yourself all the way down. You're going to draw one knee into your chest and reach the other leg long and away from you, in a similar way to how we found our initial femur circles position. You're going to look to have the hands either resting on the knee or the shin and have the back of the leg relaxed. You could also be holding on to the back of the leg as well as an option. And we're heading into that same levering movement that we started with all of the same options. So remembering that when we drew the thigh bone in towards the chest, we were using an exhale to find that. The body will always move where it's met with least resistance. So in saying that, be really aware of your pathway in towards your chest. Does it veer in or out naturally? That would be the easiest route for your thigh bone within your hip. How about, though, looking for some freedom in a different route? So a route whereby you are traveling in that sort of parallel way, quite directly. You could say you're looking at heading in towards the inside of your shoulder, if you're looking for a direct landmark to get to, as opposed to anything narrow to the midline or out to the side. Notice how that is. The other thing I'd like you to be aware of is the position of the hands on the legs. So can we interlace and have that connection? And we're going to use that as we head into single leg stretch eventually. Notice how it is through the inner seam, maybe even the groin area, as well as the front of the thigh bone. It could even turn into some circles there as well if you wanted to. So from there, the leg that you just used, you're going to put down on the floor and slide and lengthen it away. See whether you can relax through both hips, but just notice what you have either side. And then you could even draw a comparison with bent legs as well. That's quite an interesting sensation for me. And then, of course, we're going to switch and take the other side as well. So in prepping for the other side, I'm just going to find my thumb in the crease of my hip so that when I fold the leg in, I'm gently sending the inside of the thumb and finger into the crease of the hip. And then I'm going to hold on to the thigh bone there. Give yourself plenty of time. Move slowly, move with real awareness of how this is feeling as you're moving. Understand any bias you might have, understand where you might be really feeling like you're meeting yourself, finding an end of range. Maybe it starts to feel uncomfortable, so you need to back off, maybe holding onto the back of the leg instead. But similarly, we're looking at a direct route towards the inside of the shoulder and really paying attention to any alternative that the leg might be trying to pattern in. Could be taking the breath out as the leg's coming in. Again, do compare. It really helps you understand what the benefits of the movement are for you specifically. Again, this could go into circles. I'm going to release there for the moment. Slowly put the leg down, extend it away, and then just take an opportunity to notice that. In terms of, we've worked quite deeply there with the thigh bone in the pelvis, but what does it give us in sensation? And then just beginning to slide the legs in once more. And notice how they appear bent as well. So we're heading into single leg stretch, and we're going to approach that with the interlaced fingers on the knee, drawing the knee deeply into the chest. As opposed to curling up to find it, we're going to roll down from our assisted roll up to find it. So if you take your legs up separately, or maybe you want to roll onto your side to bring yourself up to seated, we're going to come back at the movement from seated, rolling back, tilting the pelvis, doing what we know how to get here. And then you're going to be releasing one leg and drawing one knee into your chest. Once again, you're aiming for the same place. You're going to interlace the fingers and draw the knee in deep, and notice how that feels. Elbows are relatively wide. They're helping the shoulder blades stay rounded, but this might be a deeper position here for your single leg stretch. The hands stay interlaced, and as you breathe out, you switch to the other side. Your hands stay interlaced and you switch to the other side. You're drawing in. You're also gently pushing the shin into the knee, into the hand, and looking to maintain the same height of your curl up. Last couple here. Pausing knees into chest. Similarly, we're going to look at our double leg stretch. Feel free to rest the head down. Otherwise, we inhale, reach, circle, and come back into the tight place. Shins pushing into hands. Inhale, circle into the deep, maybe it's deeper today, position. Again, the knees could be apart here if that were your preference at the beginning of the session. Last one. Laying down, feet coming down there. We're just going to finish off in this supine position with some swaying of the pelvis and swaying of the legs. I've chosen feet together, which means that as the legs sway, one foot rests on top of the other. Feel free to go a little wider if that's been your preference more recently. From here, once more, you could continue to roll. You could draw the legs to the side, roll onto your side and sit up, or you could roll yourself up once more to sit, and we're going to head into spine stretch. So the feet are as wide as the mat currently and the arms are lifted. You'll take your breath in. As you breathe out, you're lowering your gaze, sending your back ribs back. Fingers are reaching forwards. The low back ribs are really trying to hold back. And then as you breathe in, you're bringing yourself all the way up to your upright position. Feel free to soften the knees. Breath out. And breath in. Last one here. To bring you up. From here, we're going to head over onto our hands and knees for our middle spine mobility prior to us laying down on our front. And you're going to go wide with the hands. Find your length. And then we're going to look to allow the sternum to fall downwards. Push the floor away, widen through the shoulder blades. Notice that the curve through the back of the body is from side to side. Notice the collarbones, notice the shoulder blades. From here, bring yourself down. So you can either choose to come into a swan position with grasshopper arms, or you could come into more of a goalpost if you found that that just suited you better, whether it were elbows or whether it were more wrists or shoulders. You take your breath in and reach the crown of the head forward. You're widening through the chest. Sternum is moving forwards. Collarbones wide, blades are moving backwards. Breath out to head back down again. Inhaling to lengthen, to widen, and exhaling to return. Could it feel like you were simply breathing in and breathing out? The last one. Head will go onto the hands here. Forehead resting down. We're going to curl the toes under. Reach the heels away. Push the pelvis down into the mat whilst we slide the toes away and rest them down. Toes curling under, heels reaching long. Pelvis pushes down as we slide and lengthen, resting the legs down. And our aim is to maintain that opposition connection of pelvis pushing down whilst the legs are really moving behind the body line. and maintain that whilst we freed the toes from the mat. So slowly with length, looking at really maintaining the same amount of reach through the legs, and resting down there. Last one. Before we add those two elements together in thought, we're coming into single leg kick here. So your options are to hover your head from where you were previously resting, or you could bring yourself into this forearm position, chest is wide. You'll reach one of your legs long. Again, the pelvis is going to be pushing down into the floor there. We're coming in with the knee bend. Extend the leg away and rest it down. Pelvis is pushing down into the floor relative to the thigh bone, moving backwards. Backwards from the body. That's it. Notice the pelvis. Can you get sort of glimmers of sensation there, similar to how you just did laying flat? This will be our last one. I've chosen to keep the front of the foot long, and then heading back into what will be our swan. Our swan 2 needn't have the height to it, so wherever you were coming to previously would be fine. The 2 element is really the picking up of the legs and the finding that length and connection as you've done previously. Just breathing. Last one. Rest the legs down, rest the upper body down, and then bring yourself into your child's pose. Something rounded, something curved there. We're going to finish upright. If you wanted to, you could take a reverse roll up. You could also come into rolling down and rolling up. Otherwise, we're going to head into some heel raises and then finish with standing balance today. So finding yourself up. Using your mat if you want to stay there, or maybe coming to a firmer surface if you'd like to move. We're really looking at spreading the toes, so sort of get a gauge of that. It can be helpful just in terms of mobility through the feet. And then the balls of the feet are pushing down into the floor. We're looking at really quite a similar connection and powerful sensation through the feet. Arms are staying loose as we lower ourselves back down again. So we've got the balls of the feet pushing down into the floor, the winding up of the arches of the feet is what lifts the heel, and then the unraveling of that is what brings the heels back down to the floor, down to come up. As loose as you can sense with the upper body. Of course, there's some inner length, inner tensioning as a result, perhaps, but really externally, we're looking to be a little less switched on. We head into standing balance now, really just looking to find that similar position to how we've been on our back for this session. So pushing down into the foot to lift the leg, but notice where the leg can get to now. Finding that crease through the front of the hip if necessary, certainly being aware of where the knee is heading to. And we can take 3 breaths here, or we can take 3 leg extensions here, and then switch to the other side. So standing, you could have your thumb and finger at the ready to sort of push down there. The thigh bone's then got to come round to find its position. And it does want to feel as if it's being just gently sucked back into the hip socket. A little bit of depth. Welcoming any movement, any sensations, any sort of twitchy feelings down in the ankles. And again, you can repeat that if you'd like, depending on how it went for you, adding in the leg extensions. Always remember that you can move closer to the wall as well, depending on what kind of balance day you're having. Take care, everyone. Well done.